Are you the founder, MD, or senior leader of a creative agency, exhibitions, events, production, experiential? If you are, then this video is especially for you if you find yourself being the bottleneck or being the load-bearing wall within the agency. This short video is going to share with you the framework above the line and help you understand how to build a leadership team that will help you execute on your vision and your strategy without you being that bottleneck. I'm Suzy Malhotra, and I ran a creative design agency for more than 30 years. And so now I'm a leadership advisor and coach, and I will help you improve your performance, profit, and potential through this new leadership framework. So when you are that load-bearing wall, does this look familiar? You are carrying the weight of absolutely everything. Your agency reputation and image, the client work, your staff, delivery, profit, investors, stakeholders. There's so much that you've got going on. And what we're looking at here is how do you stop being that load-bearing wall? How do you build a leadership team that holds the weight with you, not just on you? So one question before we start anything else is how much of your week is spent on decisions that your senior team or you think your senior team should be making without you? Have a think about that for a second. And if that honest answer is uncomfortable, then keep watching because this video is going to help you with that. So first of all, I want to ask you, as I say, I've been in the industry, I've been in the agency world for a long, long time. So I've been in your shoes and I do get a lot of the challenges that you are potentially having right now. So do any of these sound like you? You are still the answer to absolutely everything. You have got a capable, trusted senior team, senior people around you, but too many decisions are still landing with you, whether they're client questions, client escalations, delivery calls, conversations that should never ever reach your desk. Are the standards in the room only being held when you're in the room, and do they slip the moment that you're not watching? So for that reason, you stay present perhaps more than you should, and you step in more than you should, which means you never get the opportunity to really step away and step back. Do you find that the growth of the business is actually adding pressure, not just capacity? So more clients, more people. So more of it's falling on you. Every time the agency grows, your personal load grows or even groans with it. And you find yourself running the agency instead of just building it. There's no time for you to think strategically. The operational urgent keeps displacing the strategic important. So you're too busy holding it together to build what's actually on your vision, your strategy, and what you need to be doing for the future of the business. If any of these sound familiar, even if it's just one or two, then I promise you this video is going to help you over the next few minutes. So the thing is, we're going to look at what's actually going wrong, and it isn't a hiring problem, I promise you. This isn't about the people you've hired as such, because as we said, you've got amazing, talented, capable people who are experts at the job that they do. That's how they've got to the leadership roles. What we're looking at is that infrastructure, that layer of leadership, and how we can build on that, because that potentially is the problem here. And what I would say is perhaps your senior team has never been taught to lead without you. They're brilliant at delivery. What they haven't been given, because, to be fair, nobody gives it to them, is a shared framework for making those decisions, holding standards, and having those difficult conversations with the team members in their direct line reporting. How do they do all that when you're not in the room? And there's no shared language for what good leadership looks like. Every senior person defaults to their own version of what it means to be a leader. And that's not a leadership team then. It's a collection of capable individuals with separate playbooks. What we need to be looking at is the strengths of those individuals and how we can work collectively as a team. And that inconsistency then really is structural and it's not personal. And every time you step in, you're reinforcing that dependency on you. The moment you fix something your team should be fixing, the agency learns that escalation works. Your involvement, however well intentioned, teaches the business to stay dependent on you. Does that sound familiar? And it's actually all changeable. That's the important thing. So let's look at the numbers first though. There is a high percentage of staff turnover last year in creative agencies, 27.6%. And 44% of managers, this is in the M&IT survey, are saying that they've never actually had any formal training. And 70% of team engagement is driven by their managers and how they lead them. But the thing is, we can all go on workshops, we can all read the books, but most of these trainings are like installing just an app on your phone. What we're looking at, what the leadership line does, is look at how do we actually upgrade the operating system. Because we know we can have productivity hacks, we can look at different ways of leading, different ways of, as I say, these trainings, they're just short fixes, quick wins. So what the leadership line framework does, it looks at the two different states of being. This is less around doing, but the doing is a byproduct of the being first, because we are human beings, not human doings. So when there are two ways that we can lead, and really only one of them does work. We can look at leading from above the line. This is where you are, this is a view from above the line, is where you are strategic, you're intentional, you're coaching your team. Decisions are made and they stay made. They're delegated to others and they stay made. Standards are held without you rescuing and having to swoop in. And you are very, very clear on what your role requires, as are your team. They're also very clear. And this view from above the line gives you the opportunity to be more serene and to have the time and the energy to focus on the areas that you need to be as the leader. But if you kept being dragged down below the line, you will be in a state or a phase of reaction, firefighting, always doing, never leading. You take the work back, you say yes when you mean no, you become the solution to every problem. And the decisions there are draining your time and your energy. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times when you do need to be below the line, but you do it with intent and by choice rather than being dragged in, and it's not your default place. And no leader ever stays above the line all of the time. That would be almost impossible. But the goal is that recognition of where you are stepping. Are you above or below? Catching the drop if you are dropping, because it will impact the team. And if you're looking to grow your team, then you need to stop dropping below the line. It's a really, really simple framework. Once you see it, you can't unsee it now. And a lot of my clients, whilst they're working with the framework, they've also now empowered their teams to set out where they want to work, either above or below the line, and how they can do that. So what this work does look like in practice, I've been working with an MD of a very large event technology company, UK based, and they are private equity backed by a US company. They have got a very positive culture. People love working there. People love freelancers, love coming into the company. And my client is the MD, and he has worked his way up, and he is fairly new in role, and he's building his senior leadership team around him to support him. But still, too many decisions are still landing with him. His senior team are more than capable, but that escalation pattern is persisting. Things keep coming back to him. So this is where we started. He has told me that working with me has been revolutionary. He never experienced such help before, and he's now planning a team leadership program for that layer beneath him, and we'll be looking at how we can do that. But what was interesting was his commercial director noticed something very independently and said to him that I can see you are less busy. It's noticeable. That it's noticeable that you have more space in your day, more space to do strategic work. So he questioned himself, am I doing less? But he's not. He is far more productive. He's achieving more. He is busy, but he's busy above the line, not below it. So the above the line framework consists of 5 pillars. So this is how you stay above the line. This is not a curriculum that we work through as such. What we do is we identify where your identity is sitting right now, where you're most stuck, and then we go there and we work on that. Now, the 5 pillars are, very quickly, the aligned leader. Lead from who you are, not who you think you need to be, or who you should be, or who you need to perform to be. Hold that line, holding accountability without rescuing, standards without controlling, as I said, and empowering your teams to also take responsibility, ownership, and accountability. Having that clarity to lead, being really, really clear on what direction you're going in, where you're taking your team, so that you can all make the right decisions under pressure, and it doesn't always stop, and it stops that upward referral to you all the time. Having full presence, your leadership attention is actually a commercial asset. You being in the room, it's not just a wah-wah soft skill. This is actually you having the skill to be present when you need to be. That doesn't mean saying much, that doesn't mean doing much, it's just having that leadership presence that you need to have when you're in the room. And we're always going to look at resilience, and this is not about bouncing backwards, back from before, because the landscape is changing all of the time, changing with our clients, changing externally, changing with AI, changing with so many different things. The landscape is changing. So how do we become agile and adapt as a team? So this isn't just down to one person who can lead us forward. So those are the 5 pillars that form one shared operating system or operating model, so everybody knows how to work collectively together. If we look at pillar 1, for example, the aligned leader, as I say, this is about leading from who you are, not who you think you need to be or should be as a leader, because this is when you get misalignment, and this is what can cause burnout. Burnout doesn't come from sheer weight of work usually, because you can do the work. Burnout comes from the additional layers of performance, expectation, bad communication, team dynamics with your peers. That's usually what causes those layers of stress. So misaligned leadership is, as I say, stressful and exhausting, and your team can feel it even before you've named it. So what does an aligned leader look like when they're leading from above the line? You know what your leadership is actually for. You know what the purpose of your role is and why you're here. You lead without performing authority. You own that authority and you have presence of that authority. The team trusts you, the person, not just the role, not just because you've got a title. They actually believe and trust in you. And your decisions feel congruent with the company values, with your own values, and they're not just managed. But below the line, you're performing authority rather than leading. The team respects the title, not the person. You're saying the right things without meaning them. And your leadership is a style of impression management. And what I mean by that is you're just out to impress all the time, which is not genuine, not authentic, and ultimately, as I say, is exhausting. The pillar 2, holding the line, is really important. It's about accountability and holding standards, ownership, responsibility without you swooping in all of the time. Because if you rescue your team and swoop in, that is a form of abandonment. You might think you're being nice, but are you actually being kind? Because every time you step in, you're robbing them of that friction, of that difficult conversation and their opportunity to develop and grow. So this is the pattern that most agencies have, but they don't name it. And I see this all the time. You set what you think is a clear expectation. Your team doesn't meet it. You step in and fix it because you think it's the best way forward. It's the quickest thing. You're up against it. You're up against a deadline. Your team learns that that's how escalation works. The pattern repeats and you stay that load-bearing wall again consistently all of the time. Remember that image right at the very beginning of the woman holding up that wall? That is just physically impossible to move forward. So those are the 2 main pillars, but there are 3 more territories, and they're all states of being, not just doing, and they're all connected to that same root shift that we're trying to make. So the 3rd pillar is around clear to lead, and this is having that direction even when you're under pressure. how you make decisions when you don't have all the answers, how do you stop the culture of upward referral that makes you the bottleneck, how do you make that shift from being the best person in the room and doing the work to being the person who directs it. This is what we're going to learn. This is what you can learn to do. These are the shifts that you can make. This is the impact you can have in the moments that matter. Pillar 4 is that full presence. It's that presence of authority and your attention as a commercial asset when it's needed, when you need to create impact in the moments that matter. When you're depleted or distracted, your team will know that before the P&L does, but ultimately your P&L will be impacted. It costs the culture of the business, the client relationships, and the quality of every decision made around you. You're paying VP money, the agency deserves a VP level leadership. Pillar 4, become resilient. Again, as I say, this is about always looking forward, not bouncing back. This is not about individual endurance, but collective adaptability and agility. We live in a volatile VUCA world. We have to be able to accommodate and adapt and be agile, quick thinking, fast forward. And we can do that if we have the systems, the process and the structure in place. And we move together collectively forward as a leadership team, not as a load of individuals. And this is one where the founder absorbs everything and the team just watches them carry it. So here's a really lovely analogy. What would have to be true about you personally to stop chopping the onions and start directing the kitchen? Imagine you're a chef of a Michelin star restaurant and you spent all of your time chopping onions. Would you really be getting the star award if you were not actually in the kitchen directing the team? So have a think about that. Are you directing the kitchen or are you chopping the onions? So as I say, leading from above the line is the ideal state and where we want to be. And there are 5 pillars that demonstrate how you are leading. But how do we get there? There is an arc, a framework that we follow to get there, and it's made up of 6 steps. This can be done in 6 sessions, 6 months, however it works for you. But the most important thing is we look at, first of all, what are you carrying? How did you get here? What makes you the leader you are today? And then we name some of those patterns, those underlying patterns that are sabotaging your potential. And then we look at what's actually underneath those patterns, what's driving, your empathy, your compassion. Is it your drive or your desire to be liked, to be a people pleaser? Do you have an element of imposter syndrome? Do you worry about how you actually got here? And then we look at what's it costing you personally and the business. What's at stake if you carry on in that state? And then we look at what we can do above the line in practice. How does that actually look in reality in your specific agency? This is not generic coaching. This is related to you and your business and your team. And what does that look like for you to lead from above the line? And then we look at how do we actually integrate that into your real world scenarios. As I say, this is not just theory. This is all about the reality of you and your teams. If you look at, by the time you get to step 3, you'll have named the pattern of what's going on and what's been really running you, what's been your operating system to date. And then by step 6, we can change that so that you have a new upgraded version 2.0 operating system. So let me tell you perhaps why this works when other things haven't. And I know this works because it's working for my clients. As agency leaders, you need to build a leadership team that can execute on your vision, strategy, and drive your growth. You cannot do it alone. And as I say, most training that you'll have done before or books you've read is like adding a new app, a productivity app, a meditation app, some hacks, some time management, all of those sort of things. But what we're looking at with the leadership line is really how do we upgrade that operating system? Why me? Why the leadership line? Why did I create it? I have been in the industry for more than 30 years. I know the exhibitions and the events industry inside out. I'm not a consultant who studied agency life. I have gone on to qualify as a coach. And what I do is I bring that unique perspective of inside your industry I have been in your shoes, and then I can bring now the frameworks and the models to help you improve your performance, profit, and potential. I'm a founder who ran an agency, as I said, and so I understand the same commercial pressures, client dynamics, and leadership decisions and stresses that you have. I get it, I've been there. As I say, this is identity level, not just surface level. Most leadership training changes what people do. This changes who they're being when the pressure arrives and in their day-to-day. Value leaks in agencies are almost always disguised as personality quirks. Oh, it's that type of person. This work goes to where the problem actually lives, underneath the behaviour, not on top of it. And this is a framework that travels far beyond the coaching room, far beyond the team room in a workshop. Above the line becomes the shared operating language of your whole leadership team. Every standard held, every decision at the right level, every difficult conversation that happens, all anchored around the same model that's designed bespoke to you and your agency. And that structural change compounds, and it doesn't stay with just one person. I have clients who I'm working with on the above the line framework. They're now sharing that with their team leaders, who are now then incorporating that and building that into the way they are leading. So it ripples down and has a huge impact in the moments that matter. So the CIPD have said recently that it can cost at least £19,000 to replace a manager. So these programs that I'm working with my clients don't cost anywhere near that, but they are ultimately saving money. We're looking in the region of about £3,000 for a program. And you think about how much that would save across the board, across a number of people that you are not developing, so they are leaving. So this is designed, as I say, from within the industry and for a specific kind of leader and for a specific kind of agency. Are you an MD, a founder, a senior leader of a creative, events, experiential production or an exhibition agency? That's my world. You're in the UK, you're typically around about 10 to 300 people, and you're perhaps navigating a merger, an acquisition, a restructure, or there have been a whole new round of senior leadership appointments. Or perhaps you're simply feeling the structural weight of growth in your day-to-day leadership, and it's starting to have that feeling of you being that load-bearing wall. Have you got a fabulous senior team who are technically capable, commercially aware, but they're not yet operating with the autonomy and the accountability that the agency needs to scale without your constant presence in the decisions? Are you ready to look underneath the patterns of what's going on? Can you understand and see the operational systems, where the breakdowns are? What we're doing with this work is addressing what's actually driving those breakdowns or those blocks. And we look at the identity and the operating mode underneath, not just the surface behaviours. And if you want a framework, not just motivation, framework that you can implement that makes change. So you're not looking for inspiration or a confidence boost or someone to come in as a motivational speaker. You're looking for a precise operating model that changes how you and your team work, and that will travel beyond the 6-session, 6-month program, whatever it is that we create. So after just even this conversation today or this video, I'm going to ask you which direction you want to take, which direction of travel, because there are 2 directions that you can go now. You can keep carrying on with what belongs to your team, same decisions, same ceiling, same costs. Then in the next quarter, you'll be at the same desk with the same problems. Next year, you'll have the same problem with the same people. And as I said repeatedly today, the cost to replace a manager is in the region of 20k. And poor leadership can cost you multiples of that in the long run. Next time you have a review with your stakeholders, with your investors, or even with your SLT, you'll still be at that same ceiling block. Alternatively, after today, you can start to look at that, building that leadership layer that's going to change all of that. And it only takes one conversation. And then we'll look at that 6-step arc and see what changes you can make. Because in the next 6 months, you can either compound into one direction or the other. You get to choose. You can book a discovery call with me first, and that one conversation will determine which way you want to go next. So what is in it for you? So obviously we've talked about the framework, but ultimately there are 3 really important pillars that we need to make sure that we address. And this is looking at it from an agency point of view, a business point of view, commercially. There's the performance element. You will have a leadership team that executes on your strategy, your vision, without you in the middle of it. Those escalations stop reaching your desk. The standards hold when you're not in the room. You delegate and it stays delegated. And the strategic work gets your attention and your time and your energy, and you're not firefighting. Ultimately, your people stop waiting for you to make it work. The profit pillar. You create a management structure that reduces the cost of getting leadership wrong. So you save money on the bottom line, ultimately. The talent stays because the leadership above them is worth staying for. Decisions are made at the right level the first time. You stop paying senior salaries for mid-level output. Client relationships are held without you on every call. And as I've said repeatedly, one senior hire getting it wrong costs £19,000 according to the CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Professional Development. And poor leadership costs multiples of that. And I'm sure you've seen that. And then there's the potential of the business, a business that scales beyond what you personally can carry. The leadership layer beneath you is genuinely self-directing. And the culture runs through shared expectations, not just your presence and not the expectations of just one individual. You can step back without things being slipped. Growth stops being limited by what you can personally carry. And I love this. The ceiling lifts when you stop being it. So I'm going to finish off today with an invitation for you to book a discovery call with me. And what that discovery call means is that we will spend some time looking at where your business is today, what's the vision that you have for your business, what's happening right now, and why you're not arriving potentially at achieving that vision for the business. You tell me honestly what it is where you are, and nothing we say will be discussed around trying to sell you anything if it's not right. If it's right for you, we'll talk about what we can do to work on that framework, how we can get you to lead, you and your teams to lead from above the line. And if it isn't right for you, I'll tell you why. So the above the line framework gave me a reference point I can actually use. I catch myself before it affects the team. This is now how it's being used on a daily basis by one of my MD clients. So I'll leave you there today. Thank you for your time, and please do book a discovery call and we can literally just have a quick chat about where your business is today, where you want it to be, and I'll support you to get there.